Thou meetest him that rejoiceth and worketh righteousness, those that remember thee in thy ways. Behold, thou art wroth, for we have sinned. In those is continuance, and we shall be saved. But we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousness are as filthy rags, and we all do fade as the leaf, and our iniquities like wind have taken us away. And there is none that calleth on thy name, that stirreth up himself to take hold of thee. For thou hast hid thy face from us and hast consumed us.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. That's one of my favorite chapters, Isaiah chapter 64. You can get that song free on oraclesofgod.org. You don't have to pay anything. You don't have to. It says it's not secure. That's because I don't collect any information, so I don't want to pay for a security certificate all the time. Because there's no secure transfer of information. Everything comes from me to you. And it's just WAV files. So, I've never heard of the great WAV file virus outbreak, but whatever. Anyways, let's suppose such a thing as possible. You know, I'm a programmer. I can imagine. Though I would think your computer would notice that was a fake wave. If you have any kind of antivirus software. All right. Let's begin with verse 1 of chapter 4. We're picking up at verse 11 today, but let's take it in context, as we love to do. Hear ye children the instruction of a father, and attend to know understanding. For I give you good doctrine, forsake ye not my law. For I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. He taught me also, and said unto me, Let thine heart retain my words. Keep my commandments and live. Get wisdom, get understanding. Forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth. Forsake her not, and she shall preserve thee. Love her, and she shall keep thee. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. Exalt her, and she shall promote thee. She shall bring thee to honor when thou dost embrace her. She shall give to thine head an ornament of grace. A crown of glory shall she deliver to thee. Hear, O my son, and receive my sayings. In the years of thy life, and the years of thy life shall be many. 1 second. Okay. Thank you. Shall be many. Okay, next verse. Verse 11. I have taught thee in the way of wisdom. I have led thee in right paths. When thou goest, thy steps shall not be straitened, and when thou runnest, thou shalt not stumble. Take fast hold of instruction. Let her not go. Keep her, for she is thy life. Enter not into the path of the wicked, and go not in the way of evil men. Avoid it. Pass not by it. Turn from it, and pass away. For they sleep not except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away, unless they cause some to fall. For they eat the bread of wickedness, and drink the wine of violence. But the path of the just is as the shining light that shineth more and more unto the perfect day. The way of the wicked is as darkness. They know not at what they stumble. My son, attend to my words. Incline thine ear unto my sayings. Let them not depart from thine eyes. Keep them in the midst of thine heart. For they are life unto those that find them, and health unto all their flesh. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Put away from thee a froward mouth, and preserve lips Put away from thee a froward mouth, and perverse lips put far from thee. Let thine eyes look right on, and let thine eyelids look straight before thee. Ponder the path of thy feet, and let all thy ways be established. Turn not to the right hand, nor to the left. Remove thy foot from evil. Okay. Love, I was thinking about the things we read. It's like, could I possibly express, as I said, love her and she will do this and that. It says that, but it's like, I don't know how to explain to you how to do such a thing. How to love wisdom. Fools despise instruction. I think it's funny because so many people will they'll mock the Bible and they'll say, the Bible, your shepherd's, the goat herder's guide to the universe, blah, blah, blah. They've never read it. Or they've read parts of it or whatever. Someone's shown them some, there's lots of things in the Bible. Actually, like I said, there's a part about where it says that they may eat their own dung and drink their own piss with you. There's things like that you could pull out of context and wow, that's a weird thing. And because the world has had many odd things happen in it, and some of them got recorded in the book. A number of them. That's all you can. I can't say how much. But that's a fraction of all the strange things that have gone on in this world that might get recorded. But the wisdom, the knowledge imparted, and they just have no clue. They've never read it. But those who have been brought down the path that leads to wisdom, the path that the Lord leads, the fear of the Lord, understanding that there is more to life than just how much you can do, then at the surface may appear that it's not just, what can I do to make myself survive and improve my situation for me? I guess that's, what can I do to improve my lot in life? That is, depending on your lot in life, that may be a very important question. You understand? We don't all come into life born into a system like America where you can work, a pretty average job and still scrape by an existence that involves getting the risk of obesity. You know what I mean? All right. And people say our standard of living has declined. I have no doubt that many things about our standard of living are not good, and their food supply and all these things are not good. But the degree to which we have to trouble ourselves about our existence is really minimized. And living in a society like that gives you a lot of luxury. And it behooves us having that ability to take that time and, like I said, to invest it in God's kingdom. And the first way you invest in God's kingdom, let's say you have a bunch of real money. Pretend money. The stuff they print up at the mint, that stuff. The funny money that we all use to buy everything. Let's say you have a bunch of it, right? You get a bunch of it somehow. Let's say I got a bunch of it. Now I got a responsibility. You got to figure out what to do with it. And one wise thing you can do certainly is invest, because you invest that money wisely. It provides more money, and you can do a lot of good with that extra money, whereas you could take just your original investment and just spend it all and maybe not do as much good. So there's wisdom in that. That's why in the parable of the talents, there's this whole investment scheme. It's, investment is not just about paper money and the figures you find in a bank. There are other things which are of value. And that's why, even without money, there are things like bartering, because you can barter things based on their inherent value or what they're worth to the individual you want to trade with. And also the same thing goes for the things of the spirit. There's things in the spirit that are of value. Even things that work in society too, like someone like Jordan Peterson would point out, if you do good to other people, it's going to resound, and in the future you'll have friends and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, true. There's a pragmatic side of it, which the Proverbs is also not hinting at, but explicitly telling you, pragmatically speaking, if you follow the ways of God, your life is much more likely to turn out good. I said, it kind of promises it's going to turn out good, but I'll say that, and it will turn out, and I'll say that's not false. That wisdom is true. God will not betray you in any way, shape, or form, or let you down. Now, your expectations may be let down because you have false expectations of what God's going to do in bringing about the salvation that he has purposed for you. But you understand, this is God's way. Your state of mind and certainty has very little to do with God's plans. While for my salvation, it is good and even necessary that I have faith. It is necessary I have faith, right? But the faith we have at times can be so minuscule and so bare bones. That when we think about, because we talk about we have to believe. Well, believe, there are so many true things to believe in the world. Things about the natural world, things, but we're talking about a specific set of things we have to believe. And it's actually a very narrow set of things. And then that also creates this illusion like, well, it's so simple. You just got to believe these simple little facts. But then we've lost track of what it meant to believe. And what belief in those facts signifies and ought to signify. And not only signify, but also create in you and manufacture out of you God's workmanship in you. But in having those things, when you have that, when it talks about your steps will not be straightened. I've taught thee in the ways of wisdom. I've led thee in right paths. When you go, your steps will not be straightened. I think I was just saying basically that, there's no, faith is something that's a gift from God. And so also is wisdom in that sense, to hear. Flesh and blood has not revealed it to you. To be able to understand the hidden wisdom, the wisdom which we speak, the hidden wisdom which God hath hidden in a mystery. There's a certain wisdom about life that is common to all men, that all men can have access to if they wish, and prosper to some degree. But the greatest wisdom and the beginning of all true wisdom is the fear of the Lord. Okay, and so having been taught in that wisdom, when you go, that is, your steps will not be straightened. Well, straightened, I would say, made difficult. But let's look it up in Hebrew, see exactly what the word is. Let's see. Verse 11. 12, actually. Straightened. Bring it up. Transition over. Bring it back. Okay. Straightened. Okay, there we go. Probably be good if I could somehow do this with two screens. To be distressed, to be narrow. Oh, wait, I already brought it up over here. Yeah, to be narrow, to be straightened, to be in straits, to be vexed. So it doesn't mean like straight is a weird thing, because he wants your steps to be straight in the sense of straight ahead. This is not that sense. This is the sense of the word we have, like the band took their name, Dire Straits. It has the idea of a straight being a narrow place, a tight place, a difficult place, meaning you're not going to have difficult steps. Have you ever navigated difficult terrain where it was difficult to find steps? Where literally, a lot of times you walk on a path, right? And it's very obvious where you're supposed to go. Like on a road, you have lines that mark the way. But sometimes you find yourself in a place where you have no idea where to go. There's no obvious path ahead. But you have to find steps. Like I think of times when I was exploring wild areas as a child, finding ways across creeks, finding ways to ford river, finding the appropriate way to get through difficult situations. And, there were times when I'd come to wild areas where it was like no one had set anything up, but somehow there was an easy way to cross a difficult piece of terrain. There was just some way so that your steps weren't difficult. So while it looked hard, I think, of course, of Jesus walking on the water in the stormy sea. I think of them, when they're trying to cross the sea and the sea and the waves are roaring, and it looks difficult. But they don't. But it does not yet have to be. And that, as a Christian, that's something you can have in faith. You can know that even though the appearance, I've gone many places where it appeared to be, and I just mean in my life now spiritually, not literally, like when I talked about as being a child. I mean, as a man, I've gone places spiritually where, I was apprehensive of the difficulty of the task ahead of me. But the Lord made it in such a way that I realized that my apprehension was unwarranted or overwrought. Maybe not completely unwarranted. Things are, I will say this. The things he asks of me now, I couldn't have handled 20 years ago. I couldn't have handled it 20 years ago. It is much more difficult. Yet, he has made a way, I get it. I don't mind, because it's like I've been in training. I feel like the centurion, like I know what it's like to be under authority. I know what it's like to be in training. I know what it looks like when someone's trying to prepare you for something hard. You know what I mean? It's like, I know what it looks like. And so you go through a succession of more and more difficult things. Okay. I've seen that before. So when it happens in my spiritual life, it's nothing to be distressed about. My steps may seem a little more difficult, but they're not really more difficult. You know why? Because I've taken the wisdom from my previous experiences and brought it with me. And whatever I might be affrighted, I shouldn't be, because I have given heed to the Lord, and I have taken with me the wisdom that He's given me. And I know better now, in spite of, I can look back and see so many mistakes, so many times when I didn't choose right. And that at times can be a little bit daunting, because you're like, well, I might choose wrong again. And I don't even mean sin. I just mean like, where I don't think I made the right decision. And so I paid a price that was just decision based. You know what I mean? It's like, like an ill-advised purchase. Not for anything like selfish. I mean, like something we needed. And I'm like, oh, I should have bought a different fridge or something. I don't know. I have a good fridge. I'm just saying like an appliance. I don't want to get specific. Well, there have been times when I bought fridges that I regretted, I guess. I mean, I got a lot of broken fridges out back. Yeah, I did regret some fridges. Not badly, though, because I went into it wisely. Anyways, I don't want to go into that detail of that because it's boring. But the point is, if you take wisdom with you, trust that the difficulties you are presented with, one, as a Christian, you should know that, if the difficulty involves sin, you will not be tempted beyond that you were able to bear. So if you didn't bear it, you can look back and say like, well, how could I have borne that better? In my life, that's been a lot of my exploration, is trying to figure out like, okay, it says you can bear the temptation. Then why am I not bearing it? Why do I yield to that temptation? Why is that not, and so I got to figure out, or seek the power, because I think that's bad. Well, is it better? I have an argument with myself about that. Is it better to be righteous because it is innate with me? Because, in a sense, that is I am a superior sort of person in a sense, right? If I have not in me to sin, right? The Lord Jesus, He was tempted, but it was not in Him. I'd like to be more like that. But also there's a sort of a thing in like, He was tempted like as we are. So when He was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he was praying that the cup should pass, we can presume that to be a sincere prayer, that was a real feeling. And that's good. As far as for me to know that was acceptable. There's no sin in that. He wanted us to see that because he understands our weaknesses. So, like Paul would say, we are cast down but not destroyed. We may falter, but we will not stumble. We may, whatever, we will not falter or fail, whatever. It's like, you'll say all these absolute statements about not failing, but also, it's like you look at Jesus going to the crucifixion, Gethsemane, that prayer. Now, some people say, oh, He wasn't, whatever. I don't agree. Because you're stealing from yourself something beautiful that the Lord has given you when you deny the Lord's humanity. And I don't know what to say, because some people want to turn Him into like a robot. Like he was up, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. He's on the cross, Check it out. It's in Psalm 22. Father, into your hand I commend my spirit. Like he's just, like that's how it went. He was just stoically up there, being crucified today, it's no big deal. Like, and so, and all those things, like, oh, I'm going to be, like he wouldn't feel a little bit of, you're not feeling little bit, I don't know, feelings about going to be crucified in just short order here, are going to be mocked and rejected and all these things are about to happen. So you may go difficult places, but the Lord will make you a way. It will not be more difficult than you can bear, which is the degree of, that's the thing. If you can bear it, that's not too difficult, is it? You know what I mean? If I can do it, it may be hard, but not so hard as to stop me. It may be uneven, but not so much as to make me stumble. And it's an absolute truth in that I will not, in the absolute sense, no, I cannot stumble or fall. And nothing is in my way. There is no difficulty before me that I cannot just blast right through, because God has given me every tool necessary. If only I could realize this in the moment, you know. It's not so easy to realize in the moment, to be like, oh, I'll bravely go forth to my own death. And not just my death, but a really awful, humiliating, and torturous death, which you technically could save yourself from, but you're not allowed to. You know, nobody had to die like that. That's the part people, you know, when Jordan Peterson talks about the worst possible death, he doesn't mention that part enough, which is, and if you wanted to, you could just free yourself. Let him come down from the cross. You know, that was, I believe that was that was when, that was sort of like the thought that he took up in The Last Temptation of Christ. I haven't seen that movie in years, whatever. And I'm not saying I recommend it. It's definitely not a reverent look at Jesus. But but you know, like I said, at the time, they made it seem like it was, at the time, it goes to show, when you consider that movie was so controversial, and you watch it now, you're like, wow, we lived in a different world back then, you know, where people were boycotting this movie and all that. I saw it though, you know, because we were like, I don't know. We always believe, I think we believed in confronting. I've never been a hide my head in the sand kind of person. I don't think my dad was either. You know, it's like, if the enemy has some weapon, let's see it. And that's always my, like, oh, let's see his weapon now that he will bring forth to defeat our Lord. You know, let us see this grand thing. Whenever the enemy has some, you know, supposedly something that's going to, like, just, you know, oh, the end of Christianity, I'm like, oh, let's see. I'm always, like, so excited. It's like, oh, look what's coming of evil to undo the work of the Lord. Oh, how shall this prosper? I don't know. I guess because of the faith we have, you know, I know that no weapon formed against me will prosper. I can only imagine what happens to weapons formed against the Lord. Take fast hold of instruction. Let her not go. Keep her, for she is thy life. And these are exhortations that are sort of like, I don't know what else to tell you. Yes. You got to recognize good advice, and when you hear it, good instruction, you should take heed. You should pay attention to that. You know, oh, that's a great thing. You know, yeah, hang on to that. It'll help you live. Not just, you know, I am come that they may have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. Like, what's that? Like, I'm alive. What more life could I have? Well, people will say it all the time. I don't have a life. You know, they want to have more of a life. I never say I don't have a life. I always feel like my chiefest, most darkest thing is I always feel like I can't live up to the life that I have. Like, I feel like I'm not enough to live up to the life that I'm living. Like, I feel like the man is not as big as the life. You know, like that. Like, well, whatever. It may not make sense to you, but it makes a lot of sense to me. It's like, I don't feel like I have no life. No life. I feel like I have a bigger life than I am man enough to fill. That's the truth. And so that's my difficulty. And I think that's an awesome problem to have. You know what I mean? It's like to feel like your own shoes are too big for you. That's not a bad place to be. You know, it's honest God truth. But anyways, so enter not into the path of the wicked. Go not in the way of evil men. Avoid it, pass not by it, turn away from it, pass away. You know, the thing about that, interesting. Because it's like, enter not, go not in their way, avoid, pass not by, turn from it, and pass away. 6. The ways of men are 6. You know what I mean? It's like you stay away from that, 666. You know, the number of a man, and its number is 600, 6. The number 6 and 60 and 600 all signify, they always have something to do with man, and not in a good way. It's man as being imperfect and not complete, like God or Christ. And the number is often associated with Christ is 8, where 7 is perfection. Christ somehow gets 8. I don't know where that comes. Well, like I said, it's going from the books on that subject. I'm not an expert on the origin, but I do observe the phenomenon in Scripture. If you don't observe the phenomenon of the emergent numerical phenomena, and it's not necessarily what am I saying about it? I'm just saying it is just something that the prophets follow. It's a formula. It's part of it. There's always, like when Nebuchadnezzar had the statue, there was 6 instruments, of course, and it was 6 cubits high, of course. And the same thing with this. When you're talking about the paths of the wicked, how many times do you have to tell people to stay away? 6 times. That's why, because there's 6 ways of the wicked. How many times? What they should say. How does the CI get you? 6 ways from Sunday, not 7. 6 ways from Sunday is what it should. I don't remember if that's what he said, but that's what it should be. 6 ways from, because there's 6 days a week besides the 7th, right? 6 days in which you may labor and do all your labor. But the 7th is the Sabbath of the Lord our God. So the ways and works of men are 6, but the ways of God are 7. In Christ, the salvation salvation brings something to man that is greater than the rest in the order that God created on the 7th day, which was the order and the rest of this world. He brings us to another world and lifts us above that. And I'm just interpreting that based on whatever, just whatever. Just the Spirit's leading, I guess. Not I guess, I presume. Enter not into the path of the wicked, go not in the way of evil men, avoid it, pass not by it, turn from it, pass away. Emphasizing, from the beginning, God hates certain things, more than others, especially the murder of the innocent. Because like you come into this world and God gives you a lot of things, and and I believing in God and fearing God, I've done certain things, but it kind of shows you the limit of like whatever. It's like there's some, like what are you willing to do in his face? What are you willing to do thinking he's not looking? I don't know, because God sees all. And it is only through unbelief that we can convince ourselves that that we can actually divorce our actions from consequences. Because that's the thing. One of the messages of Scripture is basically that there are all actions have consequences, even if they are not immediate. Even if they are not for thousands of years or for generations. That there are ultimate consequences to everything, and nothing that men have done will go unpunished, that they think they've gotten away with, because for this purpose God brought the world, to that it might be pleasing to him, for his pleasure. All things are and were created, and what it pleased him to do is to make sons. And to adopt sons, I should say. To make man, and that from men he would adopt sons, and that they would have power to become the sons of God, to sit down with him in his throne, and that he would be their inheritance. It's an astonishing thing. But it's like, you want to live forever. Well, if you want to live forever, there's a certain way you got to live. And God can't have sin and wickedness, and people who, if he wasn't looking, would easily just cosh another guy in the back of the head and either kill him or take his stuff, whatever, doesn't care. Such will not inherit God's kingdom. Now, it's possible to repent of such wickedness, and genuinely, because God has made it exceedingly plausible for men to be unbelievers. It's plausible. I find, because that's the thing. It's like for some people, it seems like you'd have to move heaven and earth to prove God exists. And for other people, you have to move heaven and earth to prove he doesn't exist. There's so many people who are utterly convinced and other people who are utterly not convinced, not just not convinced, they're utterly unconvinced. I've met so many people who are, not so many, but a good number of people who aren't just agnostic. They're positive that God doesn't exist, which is interesting. But then there are so many more people who just live that way. Like they may think God exists in some, or perhaps God exists, but somehow that thought has become exceedingly unimportant Yeah, I mean, well, maybe there's a God. You know, could be like that. That little could be didn't like suddenly like make them think, well, what if? And then like, well, what if? You know, because what if is an exceedingly important question. If you're asking, is there a God? Well, what if? What if? You know, what if? What can we know about God? And has God revealed himself to us? Oh, I think he has. If you ask God to reveal himself to you, he may. If you do it in Jesus' name, I might be willing to say he will. If you're patient, eventually. Doesn't always happen right the moment, you just put your foot down and show me you're real now. Doesn't necessarily work that way. The wicked lose sleep because they haven't done mischief. Sounds a little exaggerated, but it does go that far. Some people are so wicked, yeah, they can't sleep unless they've done something bad. Not necessarily, let's see what mischief is, right? I don't know. Ra'ah, evil. That's like affliction. So use a word for evil. I was bringing it up. You know what I mean? Ra'ah. It's a standard word, and it means evil in the sense of breaking up that which is good. That's what evil basically is. Evil is, as some have said, it's not really a thing. It's like when you have good things and they're taken away, that's evil. In the void before man existed, is that evil? It's just the void. I mean, it's not, was it evil that I didn't exist? That's a hard argument to make, right? Right? That's a hard argument to make, especially since my existence hasn't been just this unabashed good, this flow of goodness into the world. All around me, just flowing goodness to all. Now, some people around me are very gracious, and they'll say, well, you're good to us. And surely I have been good to some, as the heathen are good to their own, but never to all. Never. And would it were otherwise. Back to the text. Okay. But that may sound almost unbelievable, but for some people, like I think about, it's not like in the cartoony way you might think, but it's like, you're laying awake thinking like, I've got a dead body in my garage. I got to get that in the trunk in the morning and get it buried before the sun gets up. I better get a few hours of sleep. I can't sleep because I think about the body, but I don't want to go at 3 a.m. I want to go at 6. Whatever. I don't know. But you can see, when I think about criminality, and I'll tell you what, and I've, there's not like, I'm not like that many steps removed from it in some regards. And so I do have a certain sort of understanding of the mentality of a criminal mind, because I've thought about it in a bit. And yeah, and I can think of the same way you might lay awake worrying about something in your life that you got to take care of. They worry about things they got to take care of, except they're evil. It's like, that witness is going to talk, and I'm going to be so screwed. I got to kill him. I got to make him disappear. That's what they got. They're laying there thinking that, because it's like, oh, this guy won't pay his extortion money. I got to break his leg tomorrow. I mean, geez, does he think I want to do this? That's just, yeah, because they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. Because they make their bread through wickedness and violence. So that's what they think about doing. And and I would say this, that I prefer thinking of a more toned down version, because it's easy to look at this caricature and say, well, that's not me. I mean, that's horrible people. Yeah, that's horrible people. But like I said, the wickedness of man is a spectrum. It's a spectrum. See, wickedness is a spectrum. It goes from not so bad to exceedingly wicked. But nowhere along that spectrum of wickedness is there anything good. All right? There's nothing good along that spectrum, and all humans are on it, okay? The spectrum of wickedness. And all are worthy of death, yet all are not the exact. Yes, there is a degree. There is something, it's like, but someone, I'll tell you what, though, I don't know. The man who ends your life, that's again, that's pretty bad. Taking someone's life, not much you can compare that with, right? But of all the living ways you can hurt someone, I mean, there's like reputational damage, but there's also financial damage and the things they do to people. And oftentimes people do not in their mind think I'm making other people fall. They don't think, oh, I'm causing other people to die. What they do is they put that out of their mind. Like when people in the FDA and the CDC are recommending untested medical treatments for people, or poorly tested, falsely tested, not, that are only authorized because of a so-called emergency, which no longer exists and probably never existed, actually. There was no actual emergency, only a fear of an emergency under which they were operating, in which they continued to operate even long after it was actually obvious that it wasn't. But why? Because they had something they wanted. They wanted to make this product and sell it for billions and billions of dollars. And that was the most important thing. So there couldn't be treatments. And they didn't think about the fact that people died, or they didn't want to think about it, I suppose. I suppose some of them probably did. But when you think about the billions of dollars you can make, what does a few tens of thousands of dead people you'll never see matter? What does it matter? Think about laying awake all night, thinking about all that money you could make if you would just keep your mouth shut. Just keep towing the line. Just keep promoting that. Oh my God, your children will be taken care of for the rest of their lives. And these people that are dying, they're unhealthy anyways. And they're obese and they probably deserve it. And they're nasty, nasty people. Who cares? Right? They are the good people. They are looking after the general welfare of everyone for the most part. This product is good for a few months anyways. It's every bit as good as the things they've been giving people every year for whatever. But the point is, it's like, yeah, there are a lot of ways people, because they earn their living a certain way, they don't care, or they'll turn a blind eye. Like I don't compare, like for example, I know a lot of people around. I live in a rural area, but not in the backwoods or in the mountains. I live in basically an industrial area, is what I call it, because it's industrial. It's because it's all huge farms around me, which means it's like industrial. Except what I like is I think the air and water quality is excellent. I would say so. I tell people, and I know they spray Roundup every year though. It's like, so you be careful about that. Stay away from that stuff. And they do their dusting, but that's only a couple times a year. I used to live in the city, and it was like nonstop carbon monoxide coming out the smell, I can tell the air is just cleaner here. I think on average I'm doing better. But the point is, I talked to the farmer about it, and they do the Roundup Ready corn, they do the Roundup on the soil, they do the nitrogen fertilizer, and it didn't take me long, a while ago to figure out, okay, all this stuff is pretty sketchy as far as like long term. Is this really a good idea? Is it, and I'll tell you what, maybe burning corn is probably better than eating it. That's for sure. But well, I know it's sort of, I don't think they're evil, but it's like, I don't think the farmer considers all the things. I would have a hard time following that kind of crop production. Like, it would be hard for me to be in that business. It's hard for me to be in almost any business because I always see them all as a little fundamentally dishonest, because it's hard for me to try to make a profit on someone. I have a mental issue. I think I've mentioned this. When I was in college, my instinct was to become a priest. And I think in some ways I kind of have a priestly like calling, in that I'm content to be in poverty and not to profit from other people. And if I have food and raiment, I'm pretty content. Except I have a family, so it's like, oh, I got food and raiment for them too. So it gets more complicated, right? And a house to keep them in, because you can't keep a family I could sleep in a car, but I can't keep my family in a car. And I'd gladly do that. I'd gladly be a vagabond. I'd gladly travel the country with my wife playing my guitar. Or gladly, I don't think I could gladly sit in a monastery though. Though I thought that was my calling, because I want to dedicate myself to the Lord. But the realm of making profit business, there's nothing wrong with making a profit. There's really nothing wrong with making a profit, because you've provided something to someone that they need and that they desire, a product or service, whatever. And so you deserve the wages thereof. I mean, that's utterly understandable. A servant is worthy of their hire. But the Lord has called us to service that goes beyond that in the faith anyways. And so for me, I guess that taking the foremost concern, it's hard for me not to let that consume my life. And also, I do have a natural tendency. I don't think it's any virtue in me. I have a natural tendency that I'm averse to that kind of negotiations. I've always hated haggling and things like that. I just want to know the price and I'll pay it, whatever. It's like, I like to just dispense with that aspect of it. I don't like to be disagreeable if I can avoid it. In fact, I do dislike being disagreeable, though I certainly do not shy away from it when it comes to the truth, because we shouldn't. As much as we want people to like us or to be pleasing to other people, we must not fear men more than God. We must rather be pleasing to God. We have to eat and drink the blood of Christ, right? We have to eat and drink him. We have to make him our life. And what are the wicked? They eat and drink wickedness and violence. So I said, when all these products people are being, like not just products of medical products. I mean, even food products people are being fed. All the people in our country are getting fatter and fatter. There's something wrong. It didn't used to happen. You know what I mean? We didn't have as many. I mean, I remember I ate as much as I wanted when I was a kid, and I never got fat. I ate butter and toast and bacon and eggs and, never thought twice about it. And then there was actually a change, like around 89, I guess. All of a sudden, obesity started skyrocketing. We'd been prosperous for a while. America's always been a well-fed country. We don't have famine in America, generally speaking. I know there's the Dust Bowl and stuff. I don't think there was a famine per se. They were poor. They couldn't afford things. But so the way of the wicked is as darkness. The path of the just is as the shining light that shineth more and more into the perfect day. I love that verse. I've alluded to it many times, right? That we go from righteousness to righteousness, from glory to glory. What does that mean? That means an increasing and a ratcheting up of those things. Just like I said, it's like the temptations and struggles I go through now. I'm glad to say that my 20-year-old self wouldn't have been able to handle them. Would have freaked out. My 30-year-old self, he would have been a basket case, having to deal with what I deal with and have dealt with. My 50-year-old self, he's almost here. And he's going to laugh at my 40-year-old self, still a boy, and that's fine. I always feel like I'm trying to launch my body towards my 70-year-old self or 80-year-old self. I want it to be in good shape when it gets to that guy. He's going to thank me for that. You think about that stuff. I don't know if we'll make it there, but whatever. It won't hurt you to be in that shape whenever what time strikes you. It's been on me. I've been trying to get myself all straightened out, physically in order, mentally in order, spiritually in order. But not in that order. In reverse order, actually. Spiritually, mentally, physically. Though I'll tell you what, it doesn't hurt to get your body right in shape. It can help with the other two. Because physical affects the mental. When your physical and mental are not bothering you, you have a clearer path for the spirit. Because your body will get in the way of your spirit. The flesh and the spirit wrestle against each other. And when your flesh is discontented, and not just discontented, but disturbed with chemicals and things that aren't food, and things that are actually more like poisons in your body, like sugar. When you have all these things in your body that are disturbing it, your flesh is dying on you. It's like your spirit's going to be distracted, or potentially, unless you're very strong. And many are. In spite of their flesh and all the struggles they go through with it, they manage to be strong in the spirit. I don't want to judge any man's servant, as far as like I said, it's like, I always think it's hard when you have something like obesity, because even after you've ceased the activity that may have been sinful, you may still have the consequences. And it's hard to work back from that. As a shining light, let your light so shine before men. And also, do not sound a trumpet before you. I always like those two things together, to think both. Because be careful about how, let it be a shining light, but also do not try to falsely clothe yourself in the light as a way of making yourself seem like something you're not. We are pushing forward to be like Christ, to grow up into him, to be made in the same image, after the same likeness, to follow in the same path, the steps of righteousness as he did. That's the ultimate goal, and nothing less. And that's why it shines to something perfect, because he is that perfection. The way of the wicked, though, is darkness. They know not, their way is as if the way itself is darkness. They don't even know what they're stumbling at. They stumble, they can't even see what they're stumbling at. In the darkness, they're stumbling, they don't even know. They're so ignorant. They are so lacking in knowledge that they cannot help but stumble. We stumble as at the noonday is in the night. Why? Because our path itself is darkness. We walk in the day as if we had no eyes. For judgment standeth far off, and equity cannot enter. Yea, truth fails, and he that departeth from evil maketh himself a prey. That's Isaiah 57, maybe. It's Isaiah, that's for sure. The way of the wicked is darkness, they know not of what they stumble. My son, at least that's one thing that I'm thankful. When I stumble, I get it. I know what I stumbled at. Thank the Lord, right? That's how hey, if you know what stumble, if you don't even see yourself stumbling or know which way is up, you're in darkness. But if that's one of the beauties. Hey, are you sorry for your sins? God, let me tell you something. God forgives you. He loves you. Your sins have been forgiven. The Lord Jesus paid the price. Have faith in him, trust in him, and sins are going to be a thing of the past for you. All right? Trust me on that one. They will be a thing of the past. I'm not saying I've attained that yet, but I will attain it. And you can try. I can tell you this: I've attained what I've attained so far, and I'm not the man I once was. So there we go. That's enough. That's enough for me. I never got everything I wanted. Not yet. Not yet. But he always gave. Whenever I sought him, he always gave me at least some of what I wanted, especially when I sought him diligently. The more diligently I sought him, by the way, the more sure I was to get something. Something. Maybe not everything, but something. What? Well, you want to overcome some one particular sin? Well, go at it. You fast, pray. Deny yourself. Do whatever it takes. Like Zacchaeus going up in the sycamore tree. You got to do something about it. Go get anointed. Have some people lay their hands on you. Do the things you're supposed to do as a Christian. Go through the motions of faith, in faith, with even a little bit of faith. Calling on the name of the Lord. And you will receive what you seek if you continue seeking it. You got to keep after it. I know that. I can tell you this. By keeping seeking it, I've gotten everything I wanted. I've gotten of the things I've wanted. I've gotten many, not all, but as I've sought them, like I'm saying, like let's imagine like all the things I would like to have got are like this vitamin D. That's what this is. D3. Take your D3 in the wintertime. especially if you're someone like me who definitely likes the feeling of sun on your skin. It's a sign that you crave it. Like my wife doesn't really need it. She's like got one of those. She's one of those mutants. All right. But anyways, but imagine, it's filled with things and like, yeah, it's like, these are all the things I ever wanted from the Lord. There's a lot of things in there. But it's like if I've got a fist full of them already, that's what I mean by everything I wanted. Everything I've gotten from God is all stuff I wanted. Let me put it that. Does that make sense? Stuff I wanted, I've gotten. And all I've gotten was things I wanted. He didn't give me a bunch of stuff I didn't want. I guess that's what helps by having your will aligned with God's, to want the things he wants. That way your prayers get answered, It's part of it. It's part of it because like you believe in Jesus, you're joining his team, his kingdom. He's the king. He's your Lord. Though he will serve you, he will do things for you, attend to you, as he did his disciples. He looks out for us in ways we don't understand. I know that. I've seen it many times. He showed me that. My son, attend to my words, incline thine ear unto my sayings. Let them not depart from thine eyes. Keep your eyes on them. You know what I mean? Never let them out of your sight. You know what I mean? That's obviously a standard. You can't constantly be focused on something like that. It's hard. I mean, maybe some people can. But, what does that mean practically? Well, like all things, what is, like the subject of the Lord is something I return to every day. Not just teaching here. I mean, when I'm not here teaching. When I don't return to the subject of the Lord. Well, I return to the subject, I will talk to people about the Lord around me sometimes. But if I'm not talking to them, maybe I'm busy working, I'm talking to God about the Lord, about himself, or about things. We have to continually return to the Lord and to have our relationship with him. Like I said, it doesn't have to be some long, drawn-out thing. You should just check in. I believe in the check-in frequently theory of prayer. Whereas the quantity of my communication and the quantity and the gravity. Meaning, I talk to the Lord about the most important things all the time. I mean, the things I'm talking to him about, I have all kinds of troubles in this world, right? I got to do a bearing on my Ford 500 and I got to do a bearing on my Honda Pilot, both of my vehicles. They both need bearings. I also have to rent the tool. The tool's like you have to buy it to rent it. And so I have to have enough money in the bank to get that. And so I have to have this thing, right? And so I have to have this perfect situation where I have a whole day, because changing out of bearings is a difficult job. There can be unknown problems. I have to make sure my son's car is around in case I need to run to the store to finish the job, because I'm going to want to do both. Well, I'll do them one at a time, but I'll do them sequentially, probably, preferably. It's these press-on bearings. They're very difficult if you don't have special tools, and I don't have special tools. I have a tool that I made. Anyways, why am I saying all that? Well, I say that here because I don't say that to God. I don't say, God, what about my bearings? God, what about my windows? God, what about this car repair? I don't go to him about my car repairs. I sometimes go to him, God, I'd rather be doing something other than doing car repairs, I guess. If, if I had the money, would I pay someone else to do it? Probably not, except for the things I feel like I'm not capable of. I'd rather save the money, and I don't know. Sometimes I got to measure time and value and all that and figure out which one I need to do. A lot of times there isn't a choice. But I don't pray, God, fix my car. I just pray to God about the things that really need fixing, the things in me. And also I pray about the things in the world and what God wants me to say about them. If I should say anything about them, I presume I should have. Do I have anything to say? Well, I don't have anything to say, Lord. I want something to say about it. I want to say something about things. Because something should be said, because it seems to me the things that are being said in the world are not right. So wisdom is something we want to keep our eyes focused on. We want to return to it continually. Meaning in all your doings, you should return to wisdom and use that to help you make your decisions. To understand subtlety and not just simplicity. There is not. That's why it's like I said, it's like there are paths that are not clear, right? Where it's not obvious which way to take. But if you use wisdom, you can take the easy path that is uncharted, or you can take the difficult path and not use wisdom. You know what I'm saying? By wisdom, you can find a way in the wilderness that you wouldn't find otherwise. And that wisdom also is a stand-in for the Lord, because without the Lord, we really won't know wisdom. And through wisdom, we can know the Lord. Obviously, the beginning of the wisdom being the fear of the Lord. Health to your flesh. Okay, let them not depart from your eyes. Let them keep them in the midst of your heart. They have life to those that find them, and health to all their flesh. It is a flesh and blood benefit to behave wisely, though it's no guarantee. Like I said, it is a guarantee if you are truly wise and fear the Lord and know Christ. Wisdom will carry you to even life everlasting. It will raise you from the dead. The wisdom that led you to believe in Jesus. The wisdom that led you to follow him and to keep his word. Keep your heart with all your diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. That's true. Jesus also meant, out of the heart of man issued forth also death, fornication, adulteries, wickedness, lies. All these things originate from the heart of man and proceed out of him. Those are the things that defile a man. And Jesus was saying nothing that going into a man can defile him, but it's that which comes out of him. It's not the things, it's not the temptations that take you or the things or the foods you eat. It was literally what he was talking about there in the literal sense. But he meant it spiritually, that the outer things that are going on around you are not the thing. It's what you do with your situation. The thing that comes out of your heart. Out of your heart comes forth what? Adultery. But also out of the heart comes forth faithfulness. True faithfulness is heart-born. It is in the heart. Because in the heart, the heart is deceitful. But if we are faithful down to our, if we love the Lord with all our heart, all our mind and all our soul and all our might. And that's the idea. While the heart is deceitful, while the heart is also all those other things, that is where we must keep things. That is where we must be circumcised. And we have to be changed within. Our hearts have to be changed. My heart was changed a long time ago. And but I know what it looks like. It's like you have a different mindset. You are, when you really understand that the Lord is the Lord and that he is real and that he is judge and also that he is good and that he loves us and that he wants to save us and have us become his sons and adopt us. Well, then you know that there's got to be a way to do these things that even seem impossible. Like the heart. Who can know it? The heart of man. It's deceitful, but I say I love God. Peter. Look at Peter. Look how his heart deceived him. Do you think he lied? When Peter said, Lord, I will go to death with you. I will never deny you. Was Peter lying? Jesus didn't say he was lying. No. But you're wrong. Your heart has deceived you. You will deny me. See, our hearts can deceive us. We keep the words of wisdom. Where does Z come from? That's interesting. Not interesting. It's just, there it is. There it was. But keep it. Keep your heart and keep the words. Keep that word in your heart and then keep your heart. Keep your heart. Keeping one's heart signifies what? A sort of a fidelity, right? Be faithful to the truth. Be faithful to the wisdom. Hold on to that which is true. Reject that which is false. That's life. That when your heart is diligently keeping the words, the wise words of the Father, so to speak, that's life issues forth from that. What word issues is there? We're about done, right? Yeah, we're done. We're an hour. Issues of life. Well, we got to finish this chapter, I guess. We're going to go a little bit over then. Oh, wait. Issues. There we go. I don't know why I had such trouble finding it. Sorry. Well, because I don't see clearly. That's why I always have trouble finding things. To tell you the truth, it's quite a reasonable explanation. I gotta get reading glasses. I just can't get them right now. Hold on. Okay. Oh. Here we are. Tatsa. An outgoing extremity, perhaps a source or escape. Oh, the edge. An outgoing, the extremity. The issues. Well, so the outgoing. Yeah. The issues is a good one. The things that go out. It's life issuing forth. You know, that water, that river of water of life. You know, like Jesus said, if you ask me, I could give you to drink of living water that would be in you, a river of water, well, like a well of water springing up into everlasting life. To paraphrase. Thank you. Right? And that is in the truth in our hearts. You know, when we believe in him, that's having the truth in our hearts. The ultimate wisdom is to hold on to that truth. The fear of the Lord and the knowledge of Jesus Christ. The fear of the Lord, and when it brings you the knowledge of Jesus Christ, that perfect union. Because it brings us into him where we may with boldness have access to the Father, forgiven. I mean, it's so beautiful. Put away from thee a froward mouth and perverse lips. A froward, you know, toward and froward. To tell people to go astray. Perverse lips was perverse. I mean, crooked, no doubt. Well, I said for me, you think about perverse in the sense of perversity, like sexual perversity, but it really means crooked in the sense of like untruthful, lazuth, deviation, crookedness. See? And obviously, deviancy sexually, we often think of as perversity, but the idea of deviation goes into many other things. Though in our society today, sexual deviation is huge. People are very perverse. And in fact, you think about the way that the way they want to pervert the language so that the words no longer have the meaning. And that you can't have and you can do all you like with that, because eventually everything writes itself. Meaning you can try to apply whatever euphemisms you want to things, but eventually those euphemisms become just as offensive as the thing you were trying to hide. You can cover up with your words everything, but eventually you can call evil good all you like, but then good just becomes evil. You know, and then the word good just means evil. Because you can only get away with that for so long, and then the words just come back to their original meaning, because you can't control that externally. It will be known. You can't just control things like that and pervert the world with words. But they try. You know, they try. And let's wrap up, because this is pretty straightforward stuff. You know, put away from you. Don't speak crooked things, lies, deceits, right? Perverse lips. Let your eyes look right on. You know, I mean, remember the idea of sin in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. I think the Old Testament, but I know in the New Testament the word is harmateo, which means to hit the mark or to miss the mark. To deviate from the bullseye. The bullseye is the target, and the bullseye implies rightness, the correct thing, exactly what you ought to be doing, right? And said, keep your eyes focused on what you ought to be doing. And for us as Christians, that's keep your eyes focused on Christ. Sometimes it's hard to say what does that mean? I just meditate on Jesus. No, it means that when you're talking about doctrine, when I look at the Old Testament here, I never I never stop understanding things in light of Christ. I never stop and go back and suddenly start understanding things like an Old Testament. I mean, we could talk about that. It might be worth exploring. But the point is, from the perspective of what I'm allowing in as truth, I've got my eyes focused on the truth, which is, you can't expect to just do everything right in life and that oh, the world's just going to cooperate and make you have a good life and not punish you for your virtues. Sometimes the world does that, but the Lord won't allow that. As far as in the ultimate, you get punished for your virtues now, he will reward you for them later. Trust that. And that's part of it. That's what I'm saying. It's like you never really lose. You can seem to lose, but you will never really lose. And so the Proverbs are literally true in that sense, is that in the ultimate, God never lets those who follow his wise path down, ever. You follow this advice, you will not stumble. Ponder the path. Look where you're going. I've said this to my kids. Look where you're going. I give it to them in that way. I can be a bit of an earnest father. And I'll take on the stereotype of I don't mind, because sometimes you need instruction. It's like, whoa, don't go that way. I don't want dad to bark in my face again. Yeah, because some things are bark in your face. No. Like if I found my kid, picking on some other kid, boy, I'd chew him out. I would chew him out. And possibly more. Quite possibly more. Some behaviors need to be, you don't allow. You don't put up with it. If ever you wanted to show God how you think it ought to be done, then be a good parent. Show him what you think God ought to be like. And remember, you might get the same treatment. I'm willing to submit to that. I've never been so bad to I've been as gracious to my kids as the Lord has been to me. He's been really good to me. Okay. And I've tried to be good to them. I've tried. There's no way I could be as good to my children as God has been to me, but I've been mindful of that fact, but also I want to be as stern with them as he's been with me, because he's been a bit stern, and you know what? That was for my good. So that's okay. Look straight ahead. Look where you're going. Let your ways be established. Figure out the right way to go and then go that way. Don't go some other way. Establish the right way and then walk in it. It's simple. Turn not to the right hand or the left. Remove your foot from evil. Because that's what deviating from the true path of right behavior and righteousness. If you turn, your foot's going to get stuck in evil. You're going to stumble and fall. You're going to have problems. And that's that. it's just the truth. You're going to have problems. You're going to have sin. And sin is not profitable for you. Let me tell you. Some people think it is. No. You're deceiving yourself. I'm going to put the microphone away because we're done. You're deceiving yourself. Anyways, remember, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And we'll be back again tomorrow to study God's word. Until then, like I said.
Thou meetest him that rejoiceth and worketh righteousness, those that remember thee in thy ways. Behold, thou art wroth, for we have sinned. In those is continuance, and we shall be saved. But we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousness are as filthy rags, and we all do fade as the leaf, and our iniquities like wind have taken us away. And there is none that calleth on thy name, that stirreth up himself.